Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to SHCTV. This is Secondhand Coke, and we are back with episode 4. Today, this episode is entitled More Logical Fallacies and a Book Review, because I believe we are going to start a book review today. But going past the title into today's agenda, this is what I'm hoping to get done during our time together today. So, first, there was a forgotten detail from last time that I wanted to share with you. From one of Meghan's antics of last week, she did something that I thought was just a little strange and a little worth sharing. So I'll go into that in just a minute. This episode's also going to focus on 2 or 3 logical fallacies. So we'll do the tu quoque, which is basically an appeal to hypocrisy. We are kind of guilty of the tu quoque when it comes to Meghan and Harry sometimes, but I'll go into that in just a minute. We're going to talk about the logical inconsistency, and we may talk about equivocation. But we'll just see how far along we are, because I do want to get to the book review today. In addition, I wanted to talk a little bit about Diddy, Harry, and Meghan. Now, most of what I know about P. Diddy comes from what I remember from like 1996, and then the rest comes from my 16-year-old. But I did ask a little bit about what Harry and Meghan might have to worry about as pertains to P. Diddy. And so I have a little tea there. Not a lot of tea, just a little observation. And then after that, we will move on into chapter 1 of our book that I'd like us to start reviewing. And that is Lady Colin Campbell's Harry and Meghan, The Real Story, the second edition, Persecutors or Victims. So if you're not aware, she wrote the 2 versions. It's the same book. It's marketed at the same book as the same book, but the second edition does have a bit more to it, quite a bit more to it when it comes to Harry and Meghan. For example, she walked a very diplomatic line between wanting to call them out on their antics in the first edition, but in the second edition, she is very much, the line is gone, and she is very much forthright about how she feels about a lot of what they've done. So I'll go into more reasons why I thought we might review that once we get to that in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about this forgotten detail that I forgot to share with you from last time. So Meghan went to that big, hairdresser party, and it was highbrow hippie was the product, and it was for hair loss, which the guy who is Serge Normant, Meghan's hairdresser, who was there for Tiara Gate, and we're going to talk about Tiara Gate when we get to reviewing Lady C's book in a moment. Looks like he could use some highbrow hippie hair loss serum, as well as Meghan's husband, Prince Harry, could benefit from highbrow hippie. But and then we have the entrepreneur in the middle. But what I wanted to point out to you is this outfit that Meghan is wearing. It is of the brand name, which is spelled KHAITE. If you can't see it spelled over here on the screen and you're just listening along, KHAITE, which I, in my head, kind of interpreted as kite, maybe, or kite. But guess how it's actually pronounced? The name is a respelling of the nickname for the designer, and the designer is Catherine Holstein, whose nickname, you guessed it, is Kate. So Meghan shows up for the first time in weeks wearing a designer called Kate. And we're supposed to believe she's not obsessed with the Duchess of Cornwall or Cambridge, or better yet, known as Catherine, Princess of Wales. So, yes, Meghan's wearing a brand called Kate, and that's just something I forgot to tell y'all last week. She's also interestingly wearing a pair of Aquashura's shoes. And if some of you are maybe aware, some of you may not know, and that may be a story I need to tell at some point, or it might mean we should review Tom Bower's Revenge at some point. But Aquajura is the brand of shoe that Meghan allegedly stole from the photo shoot for Reitmans, or is it pronounced Reitmans or Reitmans, in Canada? I'm not sure. But either way, it was the department store that wished that they had never hired her to do the photo shoot. But she stole, allegedly, or she went home with a pair of Aquajura shoes that belonged to the photo shoot. We know that. So just one or two fun facts about the stuff she was wearing on that particular photo shoot. Okay, as a reminder, we had last week's logical fallacies. So we talked about the ad hominem attack, where you attack the arguer, not the argument. For example, instead of saying somebody's argument is wrong, you tell them their hair looks ugly or something. And that diverts attention away from the actual argument and then focuses it all on the arguer's hair. I think I started talking about people's mamas in that one, but it's just not nice to talk about other people's mamas. So I figured I wouldn't use a your mama joke for that one, but that is an example I used last time, if that does help you remember. Then we talked about appeal to authority, meaning trusting that because someone's an authority on a subject that they're always right. Nobody is always right about everything. We followed that with non sequitur, which is when the evidence given loosely ties together and fails to tie the evidence to whatever conclusion is being made itself. So the example we used there was Richard Eden is an authority, and he wrote a big long article about Harry and Meghan's property history and tried to use that to prove that they've bought property in Portugal, but never really came down to actually proving that in that article, at least. So that was last week's fallacies, just as a reminder to you. Before we go to this week's fallacies, let's talk a little bitty about Diddy. This is a picture that we see a lot, having to do along with the rumor that P. Diddy had princes at his freak offs. Um, this is a picture of William and Harry. They're both obviously much, much younger, and they're pictured with P. Diddy. And this picture often comes up along with those rumors that the princes were at the freak offs, but this actually wasn't a picture taken at a freak off or a Puff Daddy event at all, or P. Diddy or Diddy or whatever the kids are calling him these days. It was actually taken at a party honoring Princess Diana in 2007. So, whatever, comes along with that picture, don't assume that the picture is proof that William and Harry have spent time socializing with P. Diddy at freak offs. I don't know if that he has. I don't think William has at all. But what I have heard is that Harry and Meghan have been to a freak off or two. They are not so much in it or in any kind of trouble for it, because they were most likely allegedly there, if they were there, for drugs. not so much the trafficking of human beings that was going on there. So if there is trouble with Mary Mary and Hagen, Harry and Meghan at a freak off, it has to do with the illicit drug use, not the trafficking of human beings. I doubt that Meghan would want to give any competition to Soho House along those lines. Oh, did I say that out loud? Because I just meant that allegedly. I don't mean for a minute that she and Marcus Anderson have been playing Jeffrey and Jelaine out there at Soho House at all. I don't mean that seriously at all. That was just a joke, just allegedly, I swear. Okay, so let's ease on past that really quickly. Talk about this week's fallacies. Today we're going to talk about some fallacies that are often used to get by us with arguments in the mainstream media, the political realm, any realm where somebody's trying to make an argument. First is the tu quoque, the but you do it too fallacy, the hypocrisy fallacy. So somebody who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day comes up to a 15-year-old and says, man, never start smoking. And never start smoking, it's so bad for you. And the 15-year-old is like, dude, how are you going to tell me not to smoke with all that you smoke in a day? That's the tu quoque. The guy who smokes still can be right and is right, and probably knows more than the kid does about how you don't want to start it in case you can't stop it. But the kid throws back the tu quoque fallacy at him. We also have the logical inconsistency, and this is when an argument makes a whole lot of statements, but they contradict each other within the same statement. And sometimes it can be like if an argument is made in favor of certain behaviors, but other behaviors contradict it. So when we look at logical inconsistency in terms of the tu quoque, a lot of times, we think about Prince Harry. Well, we'll get to that argument in just a minute. The third one this week, and I don't think I'll get to an example of this one this week, but Meghan uses this one constantly, and that's the equivocation. This is when multiple meanings of words and tones are used to say one thing while meaning the direct opposite. It's often used in to say one word when you mean another, like you want to use a double entendre so that you can say something both innocent but sexual at the same time. It's to be thinking about, to be looking toward. Just think about how Meghan carefully chooses her words so that what she's saying isn't a lie technically, even if it is a lie untechnically. And we will look at an example of one of those next week. But for this week, let's take a look at tu quoque. So what the tu quoque does, it points the finger at hypocrisy in the arguer rather than the argument. And it distracts from evidence in the same way that any ad hominem argument distracts from the evidence. It starts everybody thinking about the person making the argument, him or herself, instead of thinking about whether the content of the argument is true or not. And how does this one distract from the truth? Even people who do behavior that they are adamantly telling us not to do, it still doesn't make their argument wrong. So Harry and Meghan we're famous for doing this to Meghan. So we're like, they make some kind of environmental argument, and we are like, dude, you just flew on 18 private jets. What's your deal? And the reality is that yes, there is inconsistency in between their behavior and their argument, but it doesn't necessarily prove their argument wrong. They may still be technically right that the environment is something that we should protect, that we should take care of. We're given this beautiful planet. Just like if you're given a beautiful present, you have an obligation to take care of it and not throw it around, leave it in the corner of your room to get stepped on or to get wrinkled. I have now turned this into what my kids do with the presents that they get. So, but the argument is not itself wrong, even though Harry and Meghan are inconsistent in their practice of what they preach. In fact, they don't practice what they preach at all. They have a bigger environmental footprint than most of the people they're preaching to. So the next argument that we want to talk about is the logical inconsistency. And what it is when you have within an argument, words that undermine each other, that make the stance about an issue inconsistent or even kind of self-cancel it. It happens a lot when people try to walk the fence on an argument a lot. So, they are either they don't want to offend somebody, or they just haven't made up their mind. Like, um, you know, clear cutting trees is bad for the environment because of all the species that get wiped out, but we do need the land for the houses. So, that's an inconsistency in an argument. It's either good or it's bad. If you have both in there, you've put inconsistency in your argument, and you're no longer making an argument. And it obfuscates the truth by acting as if two things can coexist at the same time. The most famous one that I've ever seen in my life, because it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever read in my life, was this by our very own Meghan Markle. Here it goes. While my life shifts from refugee camps to red carpets, I choose them both because these worlds can, in fact, coexist. And for me, they must. And that is by Meghan Markle. So she is saying that the world needs to have both refugee camps, which are places for people who have been bombed out of their homes or run out by tyranny and poor living conditions. And the world needs that, according to Meghan. We don't want a world where, maybe we work things out so refugee camps don't have to exist, or so that they're livable if they are existing. And then she also claims that red carpets have to exist. There cannot be a world where people don't get up on a red carpet and have their stupid picture made in a gazillion-dollar dress. Meghan, don't ever lose whatever that is in your brain that makes you think that, I don't know, maybe a better use of money might be spent on the refugee camps. So maybe if instead of you saying sayonara to Zara, you just wear a Zara dress and give the thousands or hundreds of thousands, in the case of that Star Wars maternity gown you won that one time, if you gave that to societies helping refugees, maybe it could be nicer for them there, rather than you standing on a red carpet looking weird, getting your picture taken. I can't deal with this quotation. I really can't. I never thought somebody could think like this and still call themselves a thinking person. But no, she can't. Let me read it for you one more time. While my life shifts from refugee camps to red carpets, I choose them both because these worlds can, in fact, coexist. And for me, they must. Brilliant words to live by Meghan Markle. Okay, so let's ease on over to SHCTV reviews a book. SHCTV book reviews. And this is Harry and Meghan, Persecutors or Victims by Lady Colin Campbell. Now, if you don't know about this book, Lady C was pretty much the first one to come out and write a book exposing Meghan Markle for who she is and Prince Harry for who he is. And, then followed Revenge by Tom Bower, which is a good one. And then, of course, there's Omid Scobie's Finding Freedom. And then that End Game. I never read the End Game, but Tom Bower's Revenge. And then even Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers, has a little bit about Harry and Meghan in it. But this is the very first book, the one on the left, Harry and Meghan, The Real Story by Lady Colin Campbell. It's the first edition. And so a few years later, in fact, I think it came out just this past April of 2024. So it's been out maybe 8 months now. She came out with Harry and Meghan, The Real Story, a second edition called Persecutors or Victims. And the one I'm going to be summarizing for you and reviewing to an extent is going to be the second edition, the one where it's Persecutors or Victims, because that's got all the latest. It'll have the stuff about are the kids real, according to Lady Colin Campbell. It'll have, those things in it. So we'll just go chapter by chapter, I figured. And the first chapter starts with Meghan just having stepped out of a Rolls Royce that she and her mother rode in. Here's the Rolls Royce and Doria and Meghan riding in it right there. You may or may not be aware that that's the same Rolls Royce that escorted or that drove Wallis Simpson to King Edward VIII's funeral. So I feel like that isn't a coincidence, but maybe it is. But that's the Rolls Royce, and they were taken from where they stayed overnight at Cliveden to St. George's Chapel at Windsor. And this is for the marriage, and the marriage ceremony was to take place at 12 p.m. Now, of course, the first famous scandal that cropped up there was whether or not she hit at that man's hand who was trying to help her out of the car. I have some footage here. Lady C does not say one way or the other, but I have some footage here, and I'll let you decide. You can say in the comments, along with whether or not you want to review this book or not. And, just let me know what you think. Here we go. Listen to all that racism. Oh my gosh, it's obscene. Okay, that's enough of that. Yeah, so much racism in that clip. It was embarrassing. I'm sure that you all are embarrassed in the UK. I had a commenter tell me, he was like, "Yeah, it was such a sad surprise that all the parties we were throwing in the neighborhood and, people around Windsor and then people at home in their own respective neighborhoods, it was disturbing to find out that those were racist parties and that they weren't us, in fact, celebrating. But, what can you do? What can you do? No, I think that obviously shows how much support and
Listen to all
goodwill
that
there was for
racism.
Richard. I remember,
Oh my gosh, it's obscene.
I think I remember one
It's enough of that.
magazine article, the thing about Compton, and I think when you read it, it wasn't as racist as the title would have you believe, but, that was the worst of what I saw. Now, I'm sure people got on social media and acted like total fools, but it's social media, that's what people do, and now Meghan has a team of people that act like total fools on social media on her behalf, so allegedly. So, what are we gonna do? So Lady C continues to talk about this wedding. She specifically says, and this is a direct quote from page 18, she stood poised to move from being basically a nobody to possibly being able to supplant Diana, Princess of Wales, as an icon for the age. She says the chapel was decorated with, quote, lavish and tasteful spring flowers, and Meghan's look was, quote, a Hollywood styles idea of beauty, dressed in supple white silk designed by Claire Waite Keller of Givenchy. And Lady C goes on to describe the dress. And does a better job than I would have described it, because based on what I see here of her just standing there, it just looks like she's in an ill-fitting white sack with fabric that is way too heavy for the lightness of the veil over top rather. And again, it doesn't seem tasteful for a divorcee to be wearing such stark white and a veil when she's already been married once before. But, maybe I'm just old school when it comes to that. Anyway, that's where Lady C kind of leaves off talking about the dress. So let's take a little look at the wedding. We'll get started. We'll take a look at the wedding right now, just a bit of it, not a lot. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Wrong wedding. Wrong wedding.
Oh,
Let me okay, I'm sorry.
oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
That's
Wrong
not.
wedding.
That's not Megan's wedding. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me find the right one.
Okay. Sorry. Just stand by. I'm working to kind of rectify that mistake. I'm really sorry for the delay and the confusion. You can allow Missy and Elliot, our guest cats today, to entertain you to entertain you while I kind of get my life together here and find the real wedding. I think we're just gonna watch the part where she walks up the aisle with Charles. Here we go. I'm sorry. If it was me, I would have fixed my hair better for the day, but that's just me. Oh, good. going to move from that. I'm never sure how to read Harry's face there, or if I even need to. But according to Lady C, her veil is full of Commonwealth flowers embroidered in, as well as the California poppy. She probably had to have an opium poppy embroidered in to interest Harry too. I don't know. Lady C didn't say that. I'm just adding that in. And it's probably not true, but whatever, it was a joke. So anyway, on page 30, the statement Lady C makes about Meghan's dress was, quote, an aware individual who'd used traditions as and when they suited her, but was prepared to jettison them when they didn't. So she's saying that Meghan's entire dress made herself appear as the type of individual who would, quote, use traditions when they suited her, but jettison them when they didn't. And we can see that she uses the Commonwealth flowers there, and then not even 2 years later, she's going to call the Commonwealth, what is it, part two, not institutionalization, but God, I can't believe I forgot that word right now. Somebody fill it in for me in the comments. The something part two, not the Commonwealth, but what it was before, and the word has slipped my mind, and I'm sorry. So after that, she goes into the veil and how Meghan is dressed, and the story about how she would go down the aisle, which was half on her own and half with Prince Charles, and the story about the Rolls Royce, all of that. One scandal Lady C touches on is the bit in the wedding about the curtsy. So does Meghan curtsy to the Queen as she is supposed to? She and Harry both, or Harry's supposed to bow. But do they acknowledge the Queen as they're supposed to? I had thought that this had been debunked, that she had actually curtsied to the Queen. And I found this guy online. This content creator is the Royal Reviewer News Show, if you want to check him out. He says that she does curtsy. So we'll watch what he has to show. And then I'll show you what it looked like when Catherine curtsied, as well as people going all the way back to the 60s. Okay, so it seems like he puts this on a loop, and the best I can figure it out is anytime he backs it up, like right there, you'll see her kind of bob from above, both she and Harry. There's the bob. And there's the walk. I think we get one more time. That was the bob. And that was the walk. So that's supposed to be the curtsy. Right there. And the Queen kind of looks like how I'm looking right now. Like, is that supposed to be a curtsy? I'm kind of taking Lady C side on this. especially when you go on and you watch Catherine's wedding, where she and William go acknowledge the Queen and Bob after signing the registry. So we just saw her do it once, and she's going to do it again. There you go. Nice, really deep curtsy, which would be what you would expect to the Queen. Kind of deep, like the curtsy did at the Meghan did at the funeral to show off the brand of her shoes. Okay. So yes, and there she is, fully curtsied. So yeah, if Catherine sets the bar, then Meghan doesn't even get to where she can limbo under that stick, in my opinion. But let's not just go Catherine v. Meghan all the time. Let's look at other royal curtsies from years past. And this is from an Instagram account called um Royal Fam Fan on Instagram. Royal Fam Fan. So go check them out, give them a like. This is where this comes from. So yes, nice deep curtsy. There's Diana in 81, Fergie in 86, Sophie, Catherine, Eugenie, and then we're back in 61. So I have to say, if we're coming down to it, my verdict is that if Meghan curtsied, it was one half-assed curtsy. She didn't even walk down to stand in front of the Queen. So I think the evidence here supports Lady C's claim. The other scandal that Lady C talks about has to do again with this tiara. So there was Tiara Gate, tiara. I say tiara. So Meghan wanted to wear this tiara, the Vladimir Kokoshnik tiara, but the Queen had already promised Eugenie that she could wear that tiara at her wedding, and Princess Eugenie's wedding day got pushed back anyway because Harry's rank took precedence over hers, and the Queen wasn't about to give her tiara away to some woman who had been, engaged to Prince Harry for like 4 months. So Meghan didn't get the tiara. Meghan ended up getting this tiara, which is Queen Mary's bandeau. It's very Art Deco. It's also got kind of colors in it, which I thought real diamonds didn't have. So maybe it's not 100% diamond. Maybe it's got other kind of gemstones in it as well. Regardless, all the fuss was because Meghan brought over Serge Normand to do a practice with her hair and demanded to have that tiara brought to her so that they could rehearse with it, so that her hair could look sloppy, and they practiced the sloppiness with the tiara, because it's really important. It's really important that the tendrils hanging loose from your face just kind of really complement your however many 1,000-pound tiara that you're wearing. At any rate, Angela Levin stepped in and said no. And Harry said his famous, "What Meghan wants, Meghan gets." And the story is that later the Queen took Harry aside and said, "Meghan does not get what she wants. She gets what I give her." And so that finished up that story. But that was all the fuss over the tiaras, and Lady C touches on all of that in her chapter. So next thing we'll do is go to some of the later pages that I figured were worth directly quoting, because it it supplants everything that Meghan has ever said about the royal family and their treatment of her, except in the engagement interview when Meghan said, they treated her wonderfully. But no, what Lady C says is, and this starts on page 44 of Persecutors or Victims. Once it became apparent that Harry was determined to marry Meghan, the whole royal family and the court fell into line. Her virtues were focused upon, not only in terms of her apparent intelligence and patent determination, but also when she chose to turn them on, her sweetness of manner, charm, vivacity, sense of humor, and last but by no means least, heritage. The fact that she was a good looking, stylish, glamorous, photogenic, mature woman with an avowed interest in philanthropy was one thing, but what sealed things in her favor was her ancestry. Not only was she American and a well educated one, with a patina of sophistication, but she was also a woman of color. The late Queen, whose wit was well known, said to a friend, Mr. Corbyn, the then feared anti monarchist leader of the opposition Labour Party, will find it much more difficult to get rid of us now that Meghan's in the family. This conveyed a welcome degree of truth as well as humor, for Meghan's biracial identity made the monarchy both reflective and representative of multiracial, multicultural Britain in a way that a white 37-year-old California born actress who had been cast member of a cable TV series and whose past left much to be desired could never have been. So, in other words, it was not racism that should have run Meghan out of the country. It was people's embracing of her racial identity that got her into the family to begin. That was one of her greatest qualities, or one of her most desirable qualities, I think, is what's being said there. Um so yes. Also, Lady C talks about the fact that Meghan is not the first, nor will she be the last, interrace or, in fact, fully other race individual in the royal family, and that this is not something that she has revolutionized about the royal family. We, of course, have Princess Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. She, I think, was very much part Moor. But you can see in her portrait that she has features that don't look entirely Caucasian. And she is, portrayed currently to be African American. If you are a fan of Bridgerton, I can't quite seem to watch the whole thing, but it's not a bad show. But the Queen herself approved weddings for her cousin to marry Nigerian-born Joy Elias Rilwan, and she married the late Queen's cousin, the Honorable James Lascelles. Also, Gary Christie was a Maori carpenter who married the Queen's cousin, Lady Davina Windsor, and that should be Windsor, not Winson. My apologies there. So Queen Elizabeth was, by all means, progressive when it comes to race relations, not only in her family, but in embracing them in the Commonwealth as well. Meghan did not revolutionize a single thing when it comes to the royal family, Lady C points out especially. Also, as points out to Harry's claim that everybody wanted to destroy Meghan's popularity and build up, Catherine and William, even though everybody liked him and Meghan best. It was contrary to the truth, if not because everybody wanted her to do so well. You know, being such a visual representative of the Commonwealth. Lady C says, it is fair to say that practically everyone welcomed the marriage, and no one at court wanted the behind the scenes difficulties to leak out, lest they influence the public's opinion and acceptance of Meghan. So, Meghan had, as we know, at that point in time, the highest level of acceptance of any royal bride ever. And contrary to popular belief, nobody wanted these, according to Lady C at least, nobody wanted these conflicts from behind the scenes to get out into the public, because they wanted the public to still continue to see her for what they were seeing her as to begin with. Next couple of pages 52 and 53, and then that's where the chapter ends and where we will end with our first part of the review of this book. Lady C says, yet 4 days after the wedding, and this is Lady C, so this is a direct quotation from her, so I is her. I should try to do an impression of her. Yet 4 days after the wedding, I was having dinner at the house of a well-connected aristocrat with impeccable palace connections when I heard a report that filled me with foreboding. The day before, Meghan had joined Harry and Prince Charles and Camilla at a garden party at Buckingham Palace to celebrate the Prince of Wales's patronages in recognition of his 70th birthday. What had taken place then, which I will cover later in this work, was so shocking as to lead all of us to conclude that Meghan was utterly unsuited to the role of royal duchess, and that it would be a miracle if the marriage worked out. None of us envisaged that when none of us envisaged then that she would find a way of getting Harry to give up being royal to forge a life with her away from his own world. But if what had happened was true, and it was, there was little doubt that she was no more suited to royal life than a fish is to stratospheric flying. And then she finishes off the chapter by talking about how Prince Harry and Meghan have moved from one controversy to a scandal to controversy back to scandal, and one after another to this day, 5 years, almost 6 years after this wedding day. And so that is chapter 1 of Meghan and Harry, Persecutors or Victims. Let me know in the comments if you would like to continue reviewing this book, or if you have any suggestions for how I review it. Thank you so much for your liking and commenting on each of these videos. Thanks for sharing the channel. I was able to become monetized just today. So within 2 weeks of starting the channel, and that's because of you guys. So please continue to like, subscribe, comment, and share, so that my next goal is to get my subscriber rate up over 5,000, and I'm at, I think, 4,992. So if you could get like 8 people to subscribe, even that would push me over my goal for this week. But thanks again for all of your support. I'm so glad to have you all here. And again, just let me know in the comments how you feel about this episode. If you want to continue with the book review, I kind of hope you do, because I'm getting into the book. But if you don't, we're here to do what you want to do. So that is all for today, everybody. I will see you next time on Thursday by 23:59 Eastern Standard Time. I'm putting a deadline down because that'll make me more likely to get a video out on time. I want to get to where I'm putting them out on Mondays and Thursdays, and then try to edge up to maybe 3 videos from there. Anyway, thank you very much for all of your support, and I will see you next time. And that will be all.